The void was never silent. It hummed with the faint vibrations of ancient engines and the far-off thunder of dying stars. Yet on this day, the silence broke like shattered glass. Deep within the black gulf between systems, a storm brewed, a twisting, churning wound in reality. It began as a shimmer, no larger than the eye of a needle, but within moments it swelled into a seething maelstrom of impossible colors and screaming voices. It was the warp made manifest, a rent in the veil between dimensions. A nearby Imperial frigate, the Penance of Faith, had been patrolling the sector, its auger arrays scanning for signs of heretic activity. The bridge was lit in the dull glow of sacred candles, their smoke mingling with the tang of machine oil and incense. Tech priests chanted Ben-Harak hymns as servitors clicked and whirred at their stations. Then the alarms blared. Crimson runes flared across the displays, and a chill swept through the crew like a physical thing. Warp breach detected. The Vox officer cried, his voice breaking, massive energy surge at grid coordinate 752. Captain Hestavar, a veteran of countless battles, gripped the command throne's armrests. Contact the fleet, ready torpedoes, and for the Emperor's sake seal the lower decks. No daemon will claw its way aboard my ship. But even as he spoke, the void outside writhed. The storm expanded, tendrils of violet and black lightning lashing outward. The hololith flickered, displaying a titanic rift opening in real space. Something was coming through. The crew fell to their knees, murmuring prayers and litanies. Even hardened voidsmen wept as ghostly screams filled the air. From the heart of the warp storm, a shape emerged, dark, solid, yet alien to their eyes. It tumbled end over end, wreathed in flames that did not burn, its surface gleaming with strange emerald light. "By the throne," whispered a junior officer. "What is that?" Captain Hestavar rose slowly, his knuckles white. "It is not of the Mechanicus. Fire a warning volley. If it advances, destroy it." Macro cannons roared, their shells streaking into the darkness. The tumbling object shifted, jets of blue fire igniting in sudden precision. With a grace no Imperial craft could match, it dodged the incoming rounds and stabilized itself. Then, as if answering their challenge, it propelled forward toward the nearest wreckage, a drifting Imperial escort gutted by previous battles. The bridge crew gasped as the figure broke free of its shell. A lone warrior floated in the void, clad in angular green armor, unlike anything the Adeptus Mechanicus had ever sanctioned. A golden visor reflected the cold light of the stars. On the ruined escort, surviving guardsmen watched in disbelief. They had been fending off the last remnants of a chaos boarding party when the storm began. Now, amidst shattered bulkheads and drifting corpses, this figure landed silently among them. Without a word, it raised a weapon unlike any bolter or lask. A burst of controlled fire spat forth, precise and deadly. The Chaos Marauders screamed as they were cut down with mechanical efficiency. Sergeant Carvin of the Cadian 22nd could only stare. This warrior moved faster than any human, yet there was no trace of mutation or warp taint in its form. Each motion was calculated, deliberate, like a machine guided by purpose. "Emperor's light," Carvin breathed. "What? What are you?" The figure did not answer. Instead, it scanned the corridor with a slight tilt of the head, as if processing threats only it could perceive. Then it turned toward the sergeant. Though its face was hidden behind that golden visor, Carvin felt the weight of its gaze. We're friendlies," the sergeant stammered. "Imperial Guard, Cadian Regiment." "Who are you?" The armored figure paused as though considering whether to speak. Finally, a voice emerged, low and steady, carrying across the voxnet with perfect clarity. "Survivors, rally to me." The words were foreign, yet commanding. Carvin felt his spine straighten. Whatever this being was, it projected authority. The surviving guardsmen obeyed without hesitation, forming ranks behind the stranger. Together they advanced deeper into the ship, clearing room after room of chaos scum. The figure fought with flawless precision, its alien rifle cutting down foes before they could react. At close range, It wielded a blade of strange, glowing metal, cleaving through armor and flesh alike. By the time they reached the main reactor chamber, the remaining traitors were in full retreat. The figure moved to a control terminal, examining the damaged machinery with swift, practiced gestures. You understand this tech?" Carvin asked, astonished. The warrior gave a brief nod. "Basic structure, enough to stabilize." Within minutes, the reactor ceased its deadly fluctuations. The ship would not explode, not yet. The guardsmen exchanged awed glances. Outside, aboard the Penance of Faith, Captain Hestevar watched the scene unfold through surveillance feeds. His fear turned to suspicion. A being of such power and skill could not simply appear from nowhere. It could be a weapon sent by the ruinous powers, a trick of the warp meant to deceive them. "Bring the figure aboard," Hestevar ordered coldly. "Alive. If it resists, kill it." Vox teams relayed the command. Servo skulls drifted through the wreckage, broadcasting the captain's decree. The mysterious warrior turned toward the approaching servitors, its visor glinting like a star. Carvin stepped forward nervously. "Sir, the ship's captain. He wants you to come aboard his vessel to answer questions." The figure regarded him in silence for a long, tense moment. Then it spoke one word. "Understood." As the guardsmen escorted their savior toward the docking bay, the warp storm behind them flared once more, brighter and more violent than before. From its depths came a sound not of this universe, a deep guttural roar that made the hull tremble and every soul aboard whisper frantic prayers. The mysterious warrior turned, visor gleaming, as if recognizing the sound. A shadow moved within the storm, vast and formless. The figure clenched its weapon. Whatever had followed it through the rift was still coming. The docking bay of the Penance of Faith was a cathedral of metal and machine spirit, its vaulted ceilings adorned with rusted icons and half-burned incense braziers. The air reeked of promethium, sanctified oil and sweat. Tech priests chanted in mechanized tones while servitors clanked forward, their flesh and iron bodies working in mindless harmony. The battered survivors of the Cadian 22nd entered first, their boots ringing against the deck plates. Behind them came the green-armored warrior, each step precise, deliberate, silent save for the low hiss of servos hidden deep within his suit. Every eye turned toward him. Veteran voidsmen who had stared down orcs and tyranids now averted their gaze, whispering half-prayers beneath their breath. Even among the faithful, the unknown was a poison. To them, this figure was either a miracle sent by the Emperor himself, or a herald of damnation. Neither possibility brought comfort. Captain Hestevar stood at the forefront, his dress uniform immaculate, the aquila etched into his chestplate catching the flickering light. His hand rested on the hilt of his power sword, as he regarded the figure coldly. Around him, a retinue of armed marines waited, weapons trained but not yet raised. "Remove your helmet," Hestevar commanded, his voice sharp as a blade. "You will identify yourself and state your allegiance. Now." The warrior did not move. His golden visor reflected the captain's stern face like a polished mirror. For several tense heartbeats, no sound came but the low hum of the ship's engines. Then, slowly, the warrior's head tilted, as though weighing the request against some private calculation. "Negative," he said at last, his tone calm and precise. "Environment secure. Identity classified." Murmurs rippled through the gathered crew. One of the Marines muttered a curse, tightening his grip on his bolter. Hestevar's jaw hardened. "This vessel belongs to the Emperor. You will comply, or face immediate purgation." The warrior turned his head slightly, scanning the armed men. No fear showed in his posture, only that same implacable calm. "Hostile action unnecessary," he replied. "My mission containment of hostile entities, assist or stand down." The words meant little to the captain, but their tone, the measured authority, the absolute certainty, unsettled him more than he wished to admit. "What hostile entities?" he demanded. The warrior's gaze shifted toward the viewport, where the remnants of the warp storm still raged like a living wound. Lighting forked through its depths, and strange, Shadowed shapes writhed beneath the surface. Pursuers, the warrior said simply. Threat classification, extreme. A chill swept through the chamber. Even the tech priests fell silent for a moment, their augmetic eyes twitching. The Mechanicus understood the danger of warp phenomena better than most. Captain, one of the robed figures intoned, his voice a metallic rasp. We must analyze the machine construct this being inhabits. Its design is alien, perhaps forbidden. His mechadendrites snaked forward eagerly. We must determine whether it carries taint or unclean data spirit. No, the warrior said, his voice cutting through the room like a blade. The sudden force of it made several guardsmen flinch. My armor is non-negotiable. Interference will compromise operational integrity. The tech priest recoiled, his gears whirring in agitation. Hestevar's eyes narrowed. Operational integrity? You speak like a soldier. Who commands you? The warrior's reply was slow, deliberate. I serve humanity. It was not the answer the captain had expected. In the Imperium, service to humanity always came through service to the Emperor. Anything else was heresy. The captain's hand drifted toward his sword, suspicion curdling into hostility. Before he could act, a klaxon shrieked. Vox officers shouted over one another, as runes blazed crimson on the hololith. Warp breach expanding. One cry, multiple signatures incoming. Chaos raiders, possibly Daemon craft. Through the viewport, dark vessels tore free from the storm, their hulls warped and writhing, studded with obscene iconography. Warp lights spilled from their prows as they vomited forth swarms of smaller assault craft. The crew dissolved into controlled chaos. Orders flew. Servitors raced to arm the macro batteries, and guardsmen scrambled to defensive positions. Hestevar spun toward the warrior. You brought this, he roared. This is your doing. The warrior did not respond to the accusation. Instead he strode forward, unholstering his alien rifle with a smooth motion. The weapon's surface gleamed with strange, cold light. Engage defensive posture, he ordered. Priority, civilian containment, structural preservation. Secondary, eliminate hostile command assets. Hestevar froze. The commands were delivered with such crisp precision that even his own troops hesitated, almost obeying instinctively. The captain's pride burned, but before he could reassert control, the first wave of enemy boarding torpedoes slammed into the ship. The impact rocked the docking bay, bulkheads groaned, and alarms wailed. From the ruptured hull spilled chaos marauders, their armor jagged and daubed with blood runes. Their battle cries were like the howls of the damned. The warrior moved before anyone else. In a blur of speed, he advanced on the nearest group, his rifle spitting bursts of blue fire. Each shot was perfectly placed, burning through corrupted flesh and ceramite alike. When his ammunition counter reached 0, he transitioned seamlessly to close combat, drawing a short, brutal blade. Guardsmen rallied behind him, inspired by his unerring efficiency. Even hardened veterans found themselves fighting harder, faster, as if the very presence of this silent warrior steadied their resolve. Carvin, still stunned from earlier events, fought at his side. Between bolter fire and Laskan volleys, he stole glances at the green-armored figure by the throne. He muttered, barely audible over the din, he fights like an entire squad rolled into one man. The battle raged across the docking bay. Chaos forces poured through in endless waves, but the mysterious warrior never faltered. His tactics were alien to the Imperium, fluid, adaptive, almost surgical. Where the Space Marines relied on overwhelming force, he used precision and speed, turning every strike into a decisive kill. As the last boarding party fell, the bay fell eerily quiet. Smoke hung thick in the air, lit by flickering lumen strips. The floor was slick with blood, both red and black. Hestevar descended from the command platform, his face pale. He could not deny what he had seen. This warrior had saved them. And yet, you, the captain said hoarsely, you will come with me. The Inquisition will decide what you are. The warrior's visor turned toward him, unreadable. Outside the viewport, the warp storm churned violently, growing larger, hungrier. Decision deferred, the warrior said. Threat escalation imminent. Even as the words left his mouth, a massive shadow loomed within the storm. It was not a ship, nor a daemon, but something far worse.
The crew's prayers faltered, their voices trembling. Whatever had pursued this silent warrior was not finished with him, and now, it was coming for them all. The shadow within the storm swelled until it blotted out the stars. Vox channels filled with incoherent screaming, a mix of mortal voices, and something far older, far fouler. The hull of the Penance of Faith groaned beneath the strain, metal shrieking like a living thing. Servitors sparked and convulsed, as their machine spirits faltered under the psychic pressure. Then, as suddenly as it had surged, the storm began to recede, folding in upon itself, like a curtain being drawn shut. The shadow vanished, leaving only a turbulent void and the eerie silence of aftermath. For a moment, no one breathed. The surviving crew stood frozen amidst the wreckage of the docking bay, their eyes fixed on the viewport as if afraid the storm might return. Then a single word rang across the Vox, spoken in the same calm, implacable tone as before. Contained. The green-armored warrior lowered his rifle. Steam hissed from vents along his armor, carrying with it the acrid scent of spent energy cells. The guardsmen stared, some in awe, others in thinly veiled terror. Whatever had just transpired, they knew one truth: without this being, they would all be dead. Captain Hestavar's voice cut through the haze. Secure the bulkheads. Sweep every deck for remaining traitors. His orders brought frantic movement as squads dispersed, though their fearful glances lingered on the silent figure at the center of it all. The captain turned to his Vox officer. Signal the fleet. Inform them the threat has been repelled, and send an urgent transmission to the nearest inquisitorial bastion. This matter is beyond my authority. The mention of the Inquisition sent a ripple of unease through the survivors. Even the most battle-hardened guardsmen feared the agents of the throne, those shadowy enforcers who could condemn entire worlds with a single word. Hestavar faced the warrior, his hand resting uneasily on his sword hilt. You will remain confined under guard until the Inquisition arrives. I will not risk my ship or my soul on your word alone. The warrior gave no sign of objection. Compliance acceptable. Threat neutralization remains priority. The captain's eyes narrowed. You speak as if you decide what matters aboard this vessel. Remember where you are, stranger. This is Imperial territory. Under the Emperor's light, you will answer to him, through his servants. The warrior's visor tilted slightly, as though considering the statement. When he spoke, his tone was even, but there was an edge beneath it. Your Emperor commands loyalty. My mission commands survival. Alignment. Uncertain. Gasps rippled through the nearby guardsmen. To question the Emperor's authority, even indirectly, was heresy. Carvin flinched, whispering a prayer beneath his breath. Before Hestavar could respond, the docking bay doors rumbled open. A squad of towering space marines marched through, their ceramite armor painted in the red and black heraldry of the Iron Crusaders. Chapter. Each warrior moved with the weight of living gods, their bolters held with casual precision. The mere sight of them forced mortals to their knees. At their head walked Chaplain Demarcus, his skull helm gleaming, a Crozius Arcanum clutched in his gauntleted hand. His voice thundered like a sermon across a battlefield. Captain Hestavar, the Inquisition has been notified of your signal. We were nearest to your distress call. Explain the heresy you have witnessed. The captain bowed his head. Revered Chaplain, this being arrived through a warp breach at the height of a chaos assault. It fights with unmatched skill, yet its origins are It refuses to remove its helm, or submit to the Mechanicus, for examination. Demarcus turned his burning gaze upon the silent warrior. And you, he intoned, each word a hammer blow. Speak. Declare your loyalty. By what right do you draw breath beneath the Emperor's stars? The warrior did not kneel, nor falter beneath that crushing presence. His voice was calm, as though answering a question he had been asked 1,000 times before. I fight to protect humanity. Any enemy that threatens them will be eliminated. The Space Marines shifted slightly, their immense forms tense. The words echoed their own oath, yet lacked the devotion to the Emperor that was the Imperium's foundation. Demarcus's tone hardened. Humanity is protected by the Emperor's will alone. Without faith, your words are dust. The warrior stood silent, his visor unyielding. The silence stretched until Hestavar feared blood would be shed. Then and there, finally, Demarcus lowered his Crozius. Very well, you will accompany us to the Inquisition stronghold on Seraphon Prime. There, your fate will be judged by those appointed to speak the Emperor's truth. Until then, you will be bound and watched. Should you resist, we will end you. Understood, the warrior said, without hesitation. Two Astartes stepped forward, attempting to affix heavy maglock manacles to the stranger's wrists. The moment their hands touched his armor, warning runes flared across their helmets. The alien suit rejected the restraint with a burst of energy, sending a ripple through the bed. Bolters were raised instantly, shouts rang out, but the warrior remained still, his voice cutting through the chaos. Unnecessary, I will comply. Physical containment incompatible with armor system. Demarcus studied him for a long tense moment, then slowly gestured for the weapons to lower. Very well, but know this, one false move, and your life ends by my hand. The journey to Seraphon Prime was a tense one. The warrior was given a sealed chamber deep within the ship, its walls warded with holy sigils. He sat motionless throughout the voyage, a silent sentinel awaiting judgment. Outside, guardsmen and Astartes alike whispered tales of his prowess, some calling him a saint sent by the Emperor, others naming him a harbinger of doom. When they reached orbit above the planet, the Inquisition was waiting. A massive black fortress rose from the surface, its spires stabbing into the clouds like the teeth of a vast beast. Thunderhawks ferried the party to its landing platforms, where robed inquisitorial acolytes waited in grim silence. As the warrior disembarked, a single figure stepped forward, Inquisitor Malvith, her face pale beneath a hood of crimson velvet. Her eyes were sharp, her voice sharper still. You arrive unbidden through a warp breach, she said. You wield technology, unknown to the mechanic. You speak of protection without devotion to the throne. Explain yourself, or be declared heretic and slain where you stand. The warrior faced her, unflinching. For a long moment, there was only the howl of the wind across the platform. Then, in that same calm tone he spoke. I am here because your galaxy is at war. My mission is to win it. Malvith's expression did not change, but the air seemed to grow colder. Then prove it, she said, for if you fail, not even your strange armor will shield you from the Emperor's will. The interior of the Inquisition fortress was a labyrinth of black stone and iron, its walls etched with litanies of judgment and suffering. Flickering lumen globes cast stark shadows that seemed to writhe like living things. Master Chief walked in silence through the corridors, flanked by 2 space marines and half a dozen stormtroopers. Behind him, Inquisitor Malvith followed with the measured stride of someone accustomed to command and execution in equal measure. The air smelled of incense and scorched metal, the cloying aroma of endless purges carried out within these walls. They led him to a chamber carved like a chapel, though the altar bore no symbols of hope, only the stylized skull of the Inquisition. A vast hololithic display hovered above it, showing a planet engulfed in fire. Cities burned, hive spires toppled, and dark swarms moved across the landscape like shadows come alive. Malvith stepped forward, her crimson robes whispering against the cold stone. This is Vardos, once a bastion of imperial industry. Now it festers with rebellion and heresy. Chaos cults have risen in the Underhive, guided by something far fouler than mere mortals. The planetary defense force is failing. 2 entire regiments of the Astra Militarum have been slaughtered. We will not lose this world. Her gaze shifted to the towering, silent warrior beside her. You claim to fight for humanity. Prove it. Join this campaign. Fight beside the Emperor's chosen, and perhaps your survival will be seen as a sign of his will rather than a curse upon us. Master Chief's golden visor reflected the burning image of Vardos.
He gave a single sharp nod. Objective accepted. Malvith's eyes narrowed at the alien phrasing, but she turned to the gathered officers without comment. Deploy immediately. The Iron Crusaders will strike the enemy stronghold in the north, while the Imperial Guard holds the central districts. The stranger, she hesitated over the word, will accompany the Astartes. If he falters, kill him. The plan was set in motion with the relentless efficiency of the Imperium at war. Drop pods thundered through the void, fiery streaks piercing the ash-choked skies of Vardos. Master Chief rode in silence within one such pod, surrounded by space marines whose armor bore centuries of battle scars. They did not speak to him, though he could feel their suspicion like a physical weight pressing in from all sides. The pod slammed into the ground with a deafening crack. Explosive bolts blew the doors open, and the Astartes surged forward into a storm of lasfire and bolter shells. Chaos cultists screamed blasphemous praises to their dark gods as they hurled themselves into the fray. The air reeked of blood, burning promethium, and the sickly sweet stench of warp corruption. Master Chief moved with calculated precision, his rifle barking controlled bursts that cut through cultists with unerring accuracy. Where the Space Marines fought like thunderbolts, overwhelming and unstoppable, Chief was a scalpel, each shot placed exactly where it would do the most damage. A Chaos Berserker charged him, massive chain axe roar. Chief sidestepped with fluid grace, driving his combat blade up beneath the brute's jaw, severing spine and throat in a single motion. The body fell twitching to the ground before it could swing. The Iron Crusaders took notice. Even among warriors bred and engineered to be living weapons, this stranger's efficiency was unsettling. Brother Sergeant Malric voxed a private channel to his chaplain. "Revered one," he growled, "this alien fights with skill but not faith. I do not trust it." "Watch him," Damarcus replied, his voice like rolling thunder, "but do not yet strike. The Emperor reveals his will in battle." The fight raged through the ruins of a manufactorum. Rusted machines towered above like skeletal giant. Cult banners, stitched from human skin, hung from the rafters, their runes pulsing with sickly light. As the squad advanced, Chief scanned the environment, mapping enemy positions in moments. "Flanking force, upper level," he reported over the Vox. 4 heavy weapons teams, prepared ambush. Malric snarled at the intrusion on their channel, but Damarcus gave a curt order. "Adjust formation, purge them." The squad moved as one, shifting just in time to meet the ambushers head-on. The fight was brutal, but the Marines' counter-strike shattered the enemy's advantage. When the last heretic fell, Damarcus approached Chief, his skull helm tilted slightly, regarding the alien warrior in silence. "You have saved lives today," he said at last, "but you have not yet proven your soul. Even the most skilled can be deceived by the dark god." Chief's response was simple: "Then let the enemy decide." Before Damarcus could reply, the Vox crackled with urgent static. "Command. This is Central District Command. We are overrun. Chaos war machines are breaching the barricades. Emperor, save us. They have summoned something." The transmission dissolved into screams and the guttural roar of a daemon engine. Damarcus turned sharply. "Rally. We move to support immediately." They emerged into the open streets, where firestorms raged unchecked. Imperial Guard units fell back in disarray, their lines shattered by a monstrous daemon engine, a writhing fusion of flesh and metal, its claws seething through tanks and men alike. Around it, cultists howled, offering their lives to feed the warp-spawned abomination. The Iron Crusaders charged with bolters roaring, their battle cries shaking the ruins. Chief broke from their line, sprinting directly toward the beast. Lasfire and warp energy lanced around him, but his shields flared and held. He hurled himself beneath the creature's swinging claw, rolling clear and rising in a single seamless motion. He fired point-blank into the daemon engine's exposed joints, severing pistons and ligaments of twisted sinew. The monster bellowed in rage, staggering as its movements faltered. Chief leapt onto its back, planting a series of explosive charges along its spine. With a final push, he launched himself clear as the beast exploded in a storm of gore and molten metal. The battlefield froze for a heartbeat. Then the surviving guardsmen roared in triumph, their fear momentarily forgotten. Even the Space Marines stared, their faith shaken by what they had witnessed. Damarcus stepped forward, his Crozius raised high. "Behold," he thundered, "whether by miracle or stratagem, the Emperor's will is done this day." But his gaze lingered on Master Chief, sharp and unreadable behind the skull helm. In the shadows of the burning manufactorum, a single inquisitorial servo skull recorded everything, its lenses capturing the image of a green-armored warrior standing amidst the wreckage of the enemy. Far away, aboard the command ship in orbit, Inquisitor Malveth watched the feed in silence. Her expression betrayed neither satisfaction nor relief, only cold calculation. "This is no mere warrior," she murmured. This is a weapon. The question is, who wields it? Below, on the shattered streets of Vardos Nyanth, the war was far from over, and Master Chief had just taken his first step into a conflict that would decide not only his fate, but the destiny of the Imperium itself. The battlefield smoldered long after the last heretic had fallen. Fires burned unchecked in the gutted manufactorums, their smoke mixing with the choking ash that blanketed Vardos Nyanth's sky. The screams of the wounded bled into the low, constant hum of Imperial voxcasters issuing prayers and orders. The stink of promethium and blood clung to every breath. Master Chief stood in the center of it all, motionless amidst the wreckage. His armor was spattered with blackened ichor and cooling gore from the daemon engine he had destroyed. Around him, guardsmen scrambled to collect the dead and reinforce the surviving lines, pausing only to cast wary glances his way. The Iron Crusaders regrouped a short distance away, their massive forms kneeling in prayer, bolters across their laps. Their chaplain's voice boomed over the crackle of fire, reciting liturgies of victory. Master Chief listened, silent and unreadable, though their words meant little to him. His visor scanned the ruin, cataloguing debris, troop formations, and escape routes with machine-like precision. Yet beneath that cold efficiency something stirred, a whisper of memory, unbidden and unwelcome. He had seen a battlefield like this before, not here, not in this grim, alien galaxy, but long ago on Reach. The shattered buildings, the desperate retreat of outnumbered soldiers, the shadow of overwhelming destruction bearing down from above. The faces were different now, twisted by faith and mutation, but the feeling was the same, a war that could not be won through courage alone. Chief's hands tightened on his rifle. In his mind's eye, he saw the burning skies of his home universe, the Covenant glassing entire cities into molten wastelands. His Spartans, his brothers and sisters, falling one by one, Cortana's voice calm and sharp, guiding him through hopeless battles. Now there was only silence in his helmet, a silence deeper than the void. Stranger, the voice snapped him back to the present. Brother Sergeant Malric loomed before him, his crimson and black armor scored by fresh battle damage. His tone was grudging, heavy with suspicion. The chaplain calls for you, do not keep him waiting. Chief gave a short nod, and followed without a word. They crossed the ruins to where Chaplain Darmachus stood, amidst the wounded guardsmen. His skull helm gleamed in the firelight, his Crozius Arcanum resting like a judgment passed. You fight with skill beyond even our finest brethren, Darmachus said, his voice echoing like a sermon in a cathedral, but you fight without prayer, without invocation. Explain this. Chief met the chaplain's gaze, visor reflecting the blazing fires around them. I fight to win, he said simply. Words do not stop blades, faith does not shield against bullets. The Space Marines stirred uneasily, some murmuring oaths. Darmachus's tone sharpened, the weight of centuries behind it. Faith is the weapon that endures when flesh fails. It is the Emperor's light that guides us through the darkness. Without it you are nothing but a blade wielded by chaos. For a long moment, silence stretched between them. Chief considered his words carefully. Where I come from, he said at last. Humanity survived by standing together. We fought for each other, not for gods. My war ended in silence. This one feels the same. The chaplain studied him, unmoving. Then, slowly he gestured toward the horizon where more fires burned. Perhaps you will learn that here the line between survival and damnation is faith itself. Before Chief could reply, the Vox crackled with static. Command to all Imperial forces, a voice barked. Chaos counterattack imminent. Multiple warp signatures inbound. Brace for assault. Darmachus turned sharply. Brothers, to position. His warriors moved with the precision of a well-oiled machine, falling into defensive formations around the surviving guardsmen. As they prepared, Chief's mind shifted into the clarity of battle readiness, his HUD filled with threat markers and tactical overlay. He could read the flow of the battlefield like a map, predicting enemy movements before they occurred. It was a gift born of training and endless war, yet it was not perfect. He had always relied on Cortana to fill the gaps, to calculate what even his enhanced mind could not. Now, alone he bore the weight of every decision. The first wave came screaming from the ruins, cultists twisted beyond recognition, their limbs warped by the touch of the warp. Behind them came traitor guard, wielding stolen Imperial weapons, their faces masks of hate and madness. They charged into the Imperial line, and the world dissolved into thunder. Bolters roared, lasguns spat crimson light. The Iron Crusaders stood like walls of iron, their chants rising above the din. Chief moved through the chaos like a shadow, cutting down enemies with surgical precision. He vaulted broken barricades, struck from unexpected angles, and never stopped moving. Where he passed, the line held. In the midst of the melee he saw a guardsman fall, Carvin, the sergeant from the wrecked escort ship. Without hesitation, Chief dragged him to cover and returned fire, his shields flaring as rounds sparked against his armor. "Stay down," Chief ordered. Carvin coughed blood, staring up at the towering figure. Why do you fight with us? You could have left when you saved us back then." Chief's answer was curt, almost cold. "Because leaving would mean losing. I don't lose." The counterattack faltered under their combined might. When the last traitor fell, silence descended once more. Darmachus approached, his crozius dripping black ire. His tone was grudging but firm. "Today, you have stood beside the Emperor's chosen. Perhaps there is more to you than soulless machinery." Chief gave no reply. His visor turned toward the horizon, where warp lightning still danced in the cloud. Far above, Inquisitor Malveth watched from the command ship, her fingers steepled. The servo skulls recordings played before her, showing Chief's every move. "Remarkable," she murmured. "He fights as though he sees the battlefield entire, as if he has fought this war before." Her acolyte bowed low. "Shall we report to the conclave, my lady?" Malveth's lips curved in a cold smile. "Not yet. Let them wonder. A weapon like this must be understood before it is revealed." On the surface, Chief stood alone, amidst the ruins, silent and still. The fires burned around him, painting his armor in flickering gold and crimson. To the Imperials he was a savior. To himself he was only a soldier, fighting a war that never seemed to end. In the distance, a massive explosion lit the sky, followed by the guttural roar of something vast and hungry. Chief's hand tightened on his rifle. It was a sound he knew all too well, though it came from a different enemy, a different universe. For a moment, he could almost hear Cortana's voice whispering in his ear. Then the illusion faded, leaving only the endless war, and the faint haunting echo of battles long past. The war for Vado. The light burned on, but for one night the battlefield lay quiet beneath a blood-red sky. The ash storms had lessened, and the distant sounds of battle were muted, replaced by the low hum of generators and the whispered prayers of Imperial guardsmen huddled among the ruins. Master Chief stood apart from them, his towering form half shrouded in smoke, visor aglow with faint golden light. He did not kneel or pray, he simply waited, motionless, scanning the horizon for threats the others could not yet see. The Iron Crusaders had established a forward command post in the shattered remains of a Manufactorum cathedral. Statues of the Emperor, cracked and headless, loomed above like silent witnesses to the slaughter. Chaplain Demarcus's voice echoed through the ruined hall as he addressed his warriors, his words measured and heavy with purpose. "Brothers," he intoned, the Crozius Arcanum raised high. "Vado, the light, bleeds, but it has not fallen. The enemy festers in the depths, whispering their vile promises. We are the cure. We are the blade of the Emperor's wrath. There will be no retreat, no hesitation. By our hands, this world will be cleansed." The Space Marines responded in unison, their voices a thunderous vow that shook the cracked stone. Master Chief watched from the shadows near the hall's entrance, silent as ever. Their faith was absolute, unyielding, forged by centuries of war. It was alien to him, but he understood the value of resolve. Soldiers needed something to fight for, even if that something was a god they would never see. When the sermon ended, Demarcus approached him. The chaplain's skull helm caught the flickering light, casting his features into shadow. "You fought well,"
he said. Even among the Emperor's chosen, your skill is remarkable, but skill alone is not enough. Faith is the steel that tempers strength. Without it, even the mightiest warrior will falter. Chief's reply was calm, measured. Faith doesn't win battles. Planning, discipline, execution, those win wars. Damarcus tilted his head slightly, as though studying a dangerous relic. You believe your will alone sustains you. Perhaps it does for now, but the galaxy is not kind to those who stand alone. Even iron must bend to the Emperor's will, or it will break. Before Chief could respond, a heavy voice interrupted. Brother Captain Severin of the Iron Crusaders stepped forward, his massive frame radiating authority. His armor was scarred and pitted from centuries of war, his left pauldron etched with ancient sigils of victory. Enough, Severin rumbled, his gaze locked on Chief, sharp and calculating. This warrior has proven his worth in battle. Whether he is a miracle or a curse, he has shed blood for the Imperium. That earns him a place at our side, if only for now. Damarcus inclined his head in grudging acknowledgement. As you say, brother captain, but he walks a razor's edge. Should he stumble, I will strike him down myself. Severin turned back to Chief. The enemy festers deep beneath the surface. Their strongest hold lies within the underhive, a labyrinth of tunnels and foundries corrupted by the warp. We will strike at dawn. You will fight with us. Chief gave a simple nod. Understood. As the meeting ended, tech priests scuttled forward, their robes stained with oil and soot. They bowed low before Severin, though their optic implants flickered with barely restrained hunger as they turned toward Chief. Honored one, a Magos rasped, his vox filter buzzing. We humbly request to examine your armor, its design. It is beyond even the most sacred STC patterns, a fragment of the Omnissiah's lost knowledge, perhaps. Chief's visor glinted, and his voice was unyielding. Negative. Unauthorized access compromises system integrity. The tech priests exchanged uneasy glances, their mechadendrites twitching. Severin raised a gauntleted hand to silence them. Leave him be. We have greater battles to fight than arguments over sacred machines. With dawn came the assault. Drop pods screamed through the sky, trailing fire as they slammed into the Underhive's outer defenses. The Iron Crusaders emerged, like avenging gods, their bolters thundering. Chief was among them, his movements fluid and calculated, adapting instantly to the chaos around him. The tunnels were a nightmare of rusted metal and writhing corruption. Chaos symbols burned into the walls, pulsed like open wounds. The enemy was everywhere, cultists howling blasphemies, traitor guard firing from fortified positions. Twisted beasts birthed from the warp itself. Chief fought at the forefront, his alien rifle spitting precise bursts of energy. Where the space marines struck like hammers, he was a blade, cutting through enemy ranks with lethal efficiency. His visor tracked targets, his mind calculating trajectories and angles faster than human eyes could follow. Brother Sergeant Malric watched him with a mix of awe and unease. Over the vox, he growled, he fights like one of us, yet not like us at all. It's as if he sees every move before it happens. Perhaps he does, Severin replied. Whatever his origin, he fights in the Emperor's name this day. That is enough. The battle pressed deeper into the Underhive. The air grew thick with heat and the stench of decay. Chief's sensors detected warp energy surging ahead, a nexus of corruption. At the heart of the complex, they found it a massive altar of bone and steel surrounded by chanting cultists. At its center stood a chaos sorcerer, his flesh writhing with unnatural growths, his voice a guttural hymn to the dark gods. The sorcerer's power lashed out in waves of psychic energy, hurling men through the air and boiling their blood within their veins. Even the Astartes staggered beneath the assault. Chief's shields flared as the warp energy struck him, but he advanced without hesitation, cutting down cultists in his path. Severin roared a battle cry and charged beside him. Together they reached the altar. The sorcerer turned, his many mouths screaming curses. Chief lunged forward, driving his combat blade deep into the creature's chest, while Severin's power sword severed its head in a single stroke. The psychic backlash shook the entire complex. Cultists screamed as their bodies dissolved into foul ichor, The altar collapsed, the symbols upon it burning away in a final hiss of defiance. As the dust settled, Severin turned to Chief. For the first time, respect glimmered in the captain's eyes. "You fight with the strength of 100 men," he said, "and the resolve of a space marine. Whatever your origins, today you have earned a place among the chapter of Iron Resolve." Chief said nothing, but his visor turned toward the ruin. In that moment he saw not victory, but another war, another world, one he had left behind. Behind them, Chaplain Damocus watched in silence, his grip tightening on the crosius. "Perhaps," he murmured to himself, "but even iron can be forged into a weapon of heresy." Far above, Inquisitor Malveth observed the unfolding events through her command ship's hololithic display. Her fingers drummed against the arm of her throne. "He grows stronger with every battle," she whispered. "If he turns against us, no force on this world will stop him." Her acolyte bowed low. "Shall we intervene, my lady?" Malveth's cold smile never reached her eyes. "Not yet. Let the Space Marines believe they have gained a brother. The higher they raise him, the farther he will fall when the truth is revealed." Deep below, among the ruins of the altar, Master Chief reloaded his weapon and stood ready. The war for Vardos Nyant was far from over, and he knew, as he always had, that this was only the beginning. The fires of the Underhive smoldered for 3 days after the final battle, casting a crimson glow that turned the city's ash-choked sky into a reflection of hell itself. The Iron Crusaders held their ground in solemn silence, their armor scarred and blackened, their spirits unbowed. The last screams of the dying Chaos forces had long faded, leaving only the hollow wind that carried the stench of promethium and burned flesh. Victory had been claimed, but in the Imperium, victory was never clean. Master Chief stood at the edge of the shattered altar chamber, visor sweeping across the ruin with precise, calculated motions. Every detail was recorded, the positions of the fallen, the strange warp scars etched into the walls, the patterns of blood left behind by fleeing cultists. His mind processed the data as if it were a battlefield simulation, but beneath that cold efficiency, unease stirred. This place felt wrong, not merely hostile but corrupted in a way even he had no frame of reference for. Behind him, voices murmured like a tide rising in secret. The surviving guardsmen huddled together, speaking in hushed tones. Some spoke of the green-armored warrior with reverence, others with fear. To some, he was a saint sent by the Emperor to deliver them. To others he was a sign of doom, a harbinger of the end time. In the Imperium, such debates never ended with agreement, they ended with purges. Among the Space Marines themselves, the whispers ran deeper. Brother Sergeant Malric paced like a caged beast, his massive fists clenching. He had fought beside Master Chief, seen his skill firsthand, yet doubt gnawed at him. "He fights like one of us," Malric growled over a private Vox channel, his tone sharp. "But he kneels to no creed, he chants no prayers, claims no oaths. He is empty." Chaplain Damarcus's voice answered, low and heavy with meaning. "The ruinous powers are subtle. They corrupt not only flesh, but purpose. A warrior without faith is a blade awaiting the wrong hand to wield it. We must watch him closely." "Watch," Malric spat. "We should act, before the Inquisition turns a blind eye, before this thing stands above even us." "Patience, brother," Damarcus said. "The Emperor's light will reveal his true nature in time." Far above the surface, in the orbiting command ship, Inquisitor Malveth watched the unfolding tension with a predator's stillness. Hololithic displays showed the city, the Space Marines, and Master Chief himself, each from different angles captured by servo skulls. She leaned back in her throne, crimson robes pooling around her like spilled blood. "He grows bolder," her acolyte observed cautiously. "The men follow his orders without hesitation, even some of the Astartes. Respect him." "Respect," Malveth repeated, her lips curving into a mirthless smile. "A dangerous word. In the Imperium, respect easily becomes worship, and worship easily becomes heresy." The acolyte hesitated. "Shall we prepare a denunciation? It would be simple to plant the proper rumor." By the time the Ordo Militant arrived, His fate would be sealed. Malveth considered the suggestion in silence. Her gaze lingered on the image of Master Chief, standing amidst the ruins, his visor reflecting the burning sky. "Not yet," she said at last. "A weapon discarded too early is a weapon wasted. Let him fight. Let him win the people's faith. When the blade is sharpest, then it shall be turned." Back on the surface, Master Chief walked among the wounded guardsmen, offering no words of comfort, but ensuring their defenses were secure. Where he passed, they straightened their spines and held their weapons tighter. They trusted him, though they did not understand why. In a galaxy where death came screaming from the stars, he was a fixed point, a force that did not waver or break. But trust was a fragile thing. A junior officer approached Chaplain Damarcus as the sunless sky deepened into darkness. His hands trembled as he saluted. "Revered one, forgive me, but there are stories spreading through the ranks. Some say the stranger's weapons are xenos forged. Others claim they've seen his armor repair itself without the blessing of the Mechanicus." He swallowed hard. "A few believe he might be a servant of the dark gods, sent to deceive us." Damarcus's skull helm turned, empty sockets staring into the young man's terrified eyes. "And what do you believe?" The officer hesitated, then whispered, I saw him stand against the Daemon engine, when even the Astartes faltered. If that was heresy, then it saved us all." The chaplain dismissed him with a wave, his mind troubled. Faith was the glue that held the Imperium together. Doubt was a contagion. If it spread unchecked, it would destroy them faster than any enemy blade. As night deepened, Master Chief found himself alone atop a ruined spire, surveying the broken city below. His visor displayed tactical overlays, troop movements, and potential ambush points, but his mind was elsewhere. The silence pressed against him, thicker than the ash-choked air. It was not like the silence of space, nor the silence of disciplined soldiers awaiting order. It was the silence of suspicion, the kind that seeped into cracks and grew until it shattered bonds entirely. He remembered Reach again. The Covenant had not needed to turn humans against each other, not when they had been united by desperation. Here, unity was fragile, conditional, twisted by faith and fear. In this galaxy, humanity fought itself as fiercely as it fought the enemy. A sudden movement in the shadows caught his attention. Chief pivoted smoothly, rifle raised, but instead of a chaos infiltrator, he found Carvin standing awkwardly with a Medica sling around his arm. "You shouldn't be up here," Chief said, voice flat but not unkind. Carvin managed a weak smile. "I could say the same, sir." "The others, they're afraid, not of the enemy, of you." Chief said nothing. "They don't understand you," Carvin continued. "Truth be told, I don't either, but I saw you save lives. That matters more than prayers or titles." Chief's visor angled toward him. "Prayers don't win wars." Carvin shrugged. "Maybe not, but sometimes they keep people fighting when everything else is gone." He hesitated, lowering his voice. "Just be careful." Whispers spread fast here, faster than truth. Before Chief could respond, the Vox erupted with static and a panicked voice. "Command, this is Outpost Gamma. They're here. The traitors are inside the perimeter. Emperor, save us." Gunfire and screams followed, then silence. Chief turned toward the horizon. Red light flickered there, too far to be natural flame. His grip tightened on his rifle. Below, unseen by mortal eyes, the seeds of doubt had been sown. As the Imperium soldiers prepared for the next battle, another war had already begun. The war of faith against fear, and of truth against whispered heresy. The alarm klaxons wailed like dying beasts, their mechanical cries echoing through the ruins of Vardos. Crimson emergency runes flared across every Vox screen in the forward command post, bathing the cracked walls in a hellish glow. Master Chief moved instantly, dropping from the spire where he had been watching the horizon. His boots struck the ashen ground with a solid thud, and without hesitation he sprinted toward the source of the signal. His visor displayed real-time updates, Outpost Gamma's life signs vanishing one by one, Vox channels dissolving into static, and a spreading bloom of enemy heat signatures pouring toward Imperial lines. The Iron Crusaders were already mobilizing. Drop harnesses clicked into place as the Space Marines prepared for rapid deployment, their armored forms towering like iron statues come to life. Brother Captain Severin barked orders in a voice that carried over the chaos. Formation Sigma, contain the breach and hold until reinforcements arrive. By the Emperor's will, this line will not break. Chaplain Damachus intoned a harsh litany as the Marines sealed their helms, their voices rising in a unified vow of slaughter. Master Chief stood apart from them, silent, his alien armor humming softly as internal systems came online. Malric, still wary, gave him a hard glance. You fight beside us again, stranger, he said, bitterness dripping from every word. Let us hope you fight for us this time. Chief gave no reply. He did not waste words where none were needed. The enemy struck before the Imperials could even reach Gamma. A surge of cultists, traitor guard and warp-spawned monstrosities came pouring through the broken streets. Like a living tide, they crashed against the hastily fortified barricades with suicidal frenzy, their howls rising above the din of battle. The sky burned red with warp lightning, casting everything in a sickly glow. Chief plunged into the fray without hesitation. His rifle spat precise bursts, each shot dropping a target with cold efficiency. Where the Space Marines fought like thunderbolts, overwhelming through sheer might, Chief moved like a blade in the dark, slipping between enemies, striking vital points, and vanishing before they could react. He was everywhere at once, a silent storm amid the chaos. Carvin and his guardsmen fought desperately behind the line. The sergeant's voice cracked over the vox. Hold. Damn you, hold. If they break through here, the entire sector falls. A monstrous roar drowned out his words as a hulking warp beast smashed through a defensive wall, scattering men like dolls. Chief was there in an instant, vaulting onto the creature's back. His combat blade plunged deep into corrupted flesh, severing tendons and warping sinew. The beast bucked wildly, but Chief clung fast, planting an explosive charge before leaping clear. The blast tore it apart in a spray of black ichor, and the line held barely. For a moment, the enemy faltered. Then, as if answering some unspoken command, they withdrew into the shadows, leaving only wreckage and broken bodies behind. The sudden silence was unnerving. Even the Marines shifted uneasily, their bolters scanning the darkness. Too easy, Malric muttered. They wanted us to hold here. Before Severin could reply, the sky screamed. From the heavens descended a barrage of drop pods. Not Imperial but traitor craft painted in blasphemous symbols. They slammed into the ground around the command post, their hatches bursting open to reveal chaos. Space Marines clad in jagged, blackened armor, bolters roared, filling the night with thunder. The Imperial line staggered, guardsmen died by the dozen. The Iron Crusaders charged to meet their twisted kin, chain swords and power fists, clashing in brutal close combat. And then, without warning, a new volley of fire ripped through the chaos, not aimed at the enemy, but at Master Chief. His shields flared as high-velocity rounds struck him from behind. He dove behind a collapsed wall, rolling into cover. The HUD registered Imperial bolter signatures, not chaos. Friendly fire, Chief's mind registered in a fraction of a second, though the term felt almost laughable in this grim galaxy. He scanned for origin points and found them immediately, a cluster of Iron Crusaders, their weapons trained on him. Through the battle haze, Malric's voice roared over the vox. By order of the chaplain and the Inquisition, the abomination is condemned. Strike him down before he turns his blade upon us. Chief's jaw tightened. The suspicions, the whispers, this was the culmination. The trial would not be words or judgment in a chamber. It would be decided here, in blood and fire. Bolter, rounds slammed into his cover, shattering stone. Chief's shields dipped dangerously low. He moved with Spartan precision, vaulting out of cover, and returning fire, not to kill, but to disable. His shots struck their bolters, their limbs, their weak points, neutralizing rather than ending lives. Traitors, Carvin's voice cut through the chaos, as he saw what was happening. He saved us. He's not the enemy.
But the words were lost in the storm. Demarcus himself emerged from the melee, his skull helm wreathed in smoke and ash. His Crozius Arcanum glowed with power as he pointed it at Chief. "Your silence damns you," he thundered. "You speak no prayers. You honor no creed. You are a weapon of the warp sent to deceive us." Chief rose slowly, his rifle lowering to his side. He could see the fanatic fire in their eyes, the absolute certainty that had no room for reason. His voice was calm, steady, and utterly unshaken. "I fight for humanity. That is enough." Demarcus's answer was a roar as he charged. The Crozius swung in a deadly arc, but Chief sidestepped with inhuman speed, the weapon striking only shattered masonry. Their clash was a brutal blur, bolter fire, crushing blows, and silent counters. The chaplain was a force of faith and fury, but Chief was precision incarnate, his every move calculated for survival. The other Marines closed in, torn between loyalty to their chaplain and the undeniable proof of their own eyes. Chief's restraint was clear. He could have killed them all, yet he held back. Even as they tried to end him, an explosion shook the battlefield, cutting through the chaos. Chaos reinforcements had arrived in overwhelming numbers, swarming both sides indiscriminately. Severin's voice boomed over the vox. "Enough. All units fall back. The enemy takes advantage of our division. Fight them, not each other." For a heartbeat, the world seemed to hang in balance. Then Demarcus lowered his Crozius, his voice ragged. "This is not over. When this battle ends, so does your deception." Chief gave no reply. He simply turned toward the advancing tide of chaos, and raised his weapon. For now, the Imperium's doubt would wait. Survival came first.
As the Imperials rallied under Severin's command, a single truth settled like ash over the field. Master Chief's trial had begun, and it would not end in words. It would end in blood, and in the judgment of a galaxy that feared what it did not understand. The ashes of Vardo's ninth still drifted in the upper atmosphere when the next storm began to gather. Imperial ships formed into uneasy formations, their hulls scarred and blackened from weeks of ceaseless battle. Vox channels burned with conflicting orders, prayers, and the occasional sound of weeping from overworked crew. Somewhere within the darkness beyond the planet's orbit, the enemy gathered strength. It was not a mere warband this time. It was the opening thrust of something far greater, a black crusade, the kind that toppled sectors and drowned worlds in blood. Inquisitor Malvith stood on the bridge of her command ship, watching the fleet's flickering tactical hololith. The pale light illuminated her features, sharp and austere, like a blade honed for decades of political warfare. She clasped her hands behind her back, her crimson robes trailing across the sec. Around her, tech priests whispered Benharic prayers as they tried to stabilize failing systems. "Their numbers grow by the hour," her acolyte reported, voice trembling. "Every auger sweep reveals new signatures, traitor fleets, daemon engines, even reports of a despoiler-class battleship at the center of their formation." Malvith's lips thinned. "Abaddon's shadow falls long. Whether it is truly him or another, War Master, this crusade must be broken here before it spreads. Ready all forces for immediate redeployment." "And the outsider?" the acolyte asked carefully. Malvith's eyes narrowed. She had reviewed every fragment of data on the green-armored warrior, every blurred picked capture, every distorted Vox recording of his voice. He was unlike anything the Imperium had seen, a relic from another time or perhaps another universe entirely. His presence stirred the ranks to courage and fear in equal measure. "He marches with us," she said finally. "For now, but see that his leash is kept short." Below, on the planet's surface, Master Chief stood among the Iron Crusaders as they prepared for departure. Drop pods were rearmed, battle tanks refueled, and ranks of guardsmen drilled in nervous silence. The air was thick with incense and the acrid tang of promethium. Brother Captain Severin approached, his armor newly polished, yet still bearing the deep scars of recent war. "Our next engagement will not be a skirmish," he rumbled. "The enemy gathers in the Maledict Rift. We strike before their crusade reaches full strength." His gaze locked on Chief. "You have fought well. Your presence has steadied the men. They follow you without question." Chief's visor tilted slightly. I gave them clear objectives. That's all soldiers need. Perhaps, Severin said, or perhaps they see in you something they lack. To them, you are more than a warrior. You are proof that victory is still possible. Nearby, Chaplain Demarcus listened in silence, his skull helm hiding his expression. Though he had lowered his weapon in the last battle, his mistrust had only deepened. To him, the loyalty Chief inspired was dangerous. Faith without the Emperor's light was a sword in the hands of madness. The march began in fire and thunder. Dropships lifted from the ashen plains, engines howling as they pierced the atmosphere. Above, the void boiled with warp light as Imperial and traitor fleets clashed. Macro cannon fire lit the darkness, and ships vanished in silent blossoms of destruction. Chief rode aboard a Thunderhawk, alongside a squad of Astartes. The interior smelled of oil, blood and sacred incense, burned to appease the machine spirit. The Marines knelt in prayer, their voices a low, unified growl. Chief remained seated, checking his weapons with precise motion. His silence made the others uneasy, but none dared challenge him. Through the canopy, the Maledict Rift came into view, a region of space where reality itself had been torn open. Warp storms raged across the void, spewing lightning and madness. At its center loomed a vast structure of black stone and writhing metal, a Chaos War citadel, large enough to rival a hive city. It was both fortress and temple, built upon the corpses of conquered worlds. Vox channels erupted with static as the fleet's orders came through. Imperial forces would strike in 3 waves, the first to breach the outer defenses, the second to secure landing zones, and the third to cut the head from the serpent by destroying the traitor command structure. Severin's voice boomed across the channel. Brothers of the Iron Crusaders, this is the enemy's heart. Cut it out and the crusade will die with it. For the Emperor, the battle began the instant they breached the outer defenses. Chaos ships swarmed like hornets, their hulls marked with vile Thunderhawks weaved through torrents of flak and warp fire, their shields flaring. Chief's craft shook violently as a near miss sent alarms blaring. "Brace," Malric shouted, gripping a handhold as the Thunderhawk banked hard. The ramp dropped even before the landing struts touched down. Chief leapt first, hitting the ground in a roll and coming up firing. The air was a maelstrom of noise and fury. Cultists swarmed in countless numbers, their bodies twisted by corruption. Behind them, traitor Astartes advanced like living tanks, their bolters roaring blasphemous hymns of destruction. Chief moved through the chaos with surgical precision. His visor marked targets, calculated angles, and highlighted weak points in enemy armor. His rifle barked steady, controlled bursts, each shot a kill. When a traitor Marine closed on him, he met the charge head-on, sidestepping the massive blow and driving his combat blade up under the corrupted helmet. The traitor fell, twitching, as Chief was already moving to the next threat. Imperial forces pushed forward in brutal grinding advances. Guardsmen died by the score, their bodies forming piles at the feet of their Astartes overlords. The Iron Crusaders never slowed, their faith an unbreakable wall. As the battle raged, Demarcus kept one eye on Chief. Over the Vox he spoke to Severin alone. "You see how the men rally to him, even our own brothers. If he turns against us at the wrong moment, this crusade will collapse from within." Severin's reply was grim. "I see it. But without him, we may not win at all." The fighting pushed deeper into the citadel's core. Here, the corruption was absolute. The walls pulsed like living flesh, and the ground bled beneath their boots. Warp echoes screamed in the air, a constant chorus of madness. In the heart of the complex, a massive gate stood sealed by chains of reality-bending energy. From beyond it came a sound like the heartbeat of a god. Chief scanned it, analyzing structural weaknesses. "Primary target located," he said flatly. "Recommend concentrated assault." Before Severin could respond, the gate split open with a howl of warp fire. From the darkness beyond emerged a towering figure, clad in spiked black armor, a demon weapon burning in his hand. His presence was like gravity,
crushing and suffocating. Imperials, the War Master's voice boomed, dripping contempt, and a stranger among them. I see you, Outlander. You are not of this galaxy. You do not belong. Chief raised his rifle visor, reflecting the monster's glow. Doesn't matter, he said simply. You're in my way. The War Master laughed, a sound like breaking worlds. Then let us see if you can stand against the will of the gods. The final phase of the battle had begun. Chief, the Iron Crusaders, and the remaining guardsmen surged forward as the War Master's elite struck back. In the chaos, Malveth's plan shifted into motion. Hidden among the Imperial ranks, her agents whispered orders and planted seeds of mistrust. To some, they spoke of Chief's origins as alien and heretical. To others, they promised salvation through his leadership alone. The goal was not clarity, but division. As bolt of fire tore through the air and warp energy ripped the ground apart, two wars now raged side by side, one of flesh and steel, and another of loyalty and lie. And at the center of both stood Master Chief, silent and unyielding, as the galaxy's fate hung in the balance. The War Master moved like a storm given flesh, his towering form scattering rubble and corpses alike with every stride. His daemon weapon howled as if alive, its jagged edge exhaling tendrils of warp energy that warped the air around it. Even the Iron Crusaders, whose faith was as unshakable as the ceramite plates of their armor, faltered for the briefest instant at the sight of him. This was no mere traitor Astartes, no rabid warlord born from the dregs of heresy. This was a chosen champion of the dark gods, a creature elevated by millennia of slaughter. Master Chief felt the shift in the battle immediately. The chaos of clashing forces narrowed into a single, unavoidable focal point. The War Master's attention locked on him, and in that moment, Chief understood the enemy's intent. The traitor leader had not merely gathered his forces to crush the Imperium here, he had come to claim Chief himself. Outlander, the War Master's voice, thundered across the battlefield, carried on both Vox channels and the raw psychic force of his presence. I have seen you in visions. You are a weapon forged outside the reach of our galaxy's gods. The warp hungers for you. I will take you, body and soul, and break you to their will. Chief said nothing. His visor gleamed like a shard of gold in the swirling warp light as he raised his rifle and fired.
The opening shots struck the War Master's chest and shoulders, but the rounds simply flattened against his corrupted armor, absorbed by layers of unnatural resilience. The monster laughed, the sound a jagged echo that cut through the din of battle. Severin bellowed a war cry and led his space marines into the fray, their bolters roaring in disciplined volleys. The War Master moved with terrifying speed for his size, intercepting the first charge with a sweep of his daemon blade. Two Crusaders were cleaved in half in a single strike, their bisected bodies hurled across the chamber like broken dolls. The others pressed on undaunted, chanting the Emperor's name even as their brothers fell. Chief advanced through the melee with relentless precision. His movements were efficient, almost inhumanly smooth, as he ducked under sweeping claws, fired controlled bursts at exposed joints, and drove his combat blade into gaps in corrupted armor. Each strike slowed the War Master by fractions, chipping away at his seemingly limitless strength. The battle became a dance of titans. Chief's shields flared under glancing blows, draining dangerously fast. His HUD screamed warnings, but he ignored them, focusing entirely on the creature before him. The War Master's attacks were brutal, fueled by rage and dark sorcery, while Chief's counters were cold and methodical. Where the traitor fought to dominate, Chief fought to survive. Meanwhile, the battlefield around them dissolved into madness. Chaos forces surged forward with renewed frenzy, their zeal fed by the presence of their master. Guardsmen died in droves, their screams lost beneath the booming chants of the heretics. Even the Iron Crusaders were pushed to their limits, their disciplined lines bending beneath the tide. Chaplain Damarcus fought like a figure carved from faith itself, his Crozius Arcanum rising and falling in perfect rhythm. Over the Vox, his voice rang out above the slaughter. Hold the line, the Emperor tests us in fire and blood.
do not falter. But Damarcus's gaze kept flicking toward Chief. Though the alien warrior battled the War Master with unmatched ferocity, doubt gnawed at the chaplain's mind. Was this struggle truly in service to the Emperor, or merely a clash of predators fighting for dominance? The War Master sensed it too. His laughter rolled like thunder. See how they question you, alien. Even as you fight for them, they whisper of heresy and treachery. Their faith is a leash, and you are the beast they fear to unleash. Chief did not respond. He dropped low, sliding beneath a massive strike that would have torn him in half. With a swift motion, he planted an explosive charge on the War Master's leg joint and rolled away. The detonation staggered the giant, blowing chunks of corrupted armor into the air. Severin seized the opening, plunging his power sword into the exposed wound and twisting hard. The War Master roared, backhanding the captain with such force that Severin's massive frame crashed through a wall, leaving a crater in the stone. The sight sent a ripple of fury through the Crusaders, and they redoubled their assault, firing point-blank into the traitor lord's wounded limb. But the War Master was far from beaten. Warp energy surged around him, knitting torn flesh and shattered bone. His wounds closed before their eyes, and his voice became a guttural chant that resonated through the chamber. Cultists threw themselves into the ritual, their bodies igniting as living fuel to feed his power. Malvis' voice cut through the confusion over the command vox, sharp and cold. All forces, this is the Inquisition. Focus fire on the War Master. If he completes his ascension, this battle is lost. Her words were met with chaos. Some Imperial units obeyed instantly, shifting fire to the traitor leader. Others hesitated, their commanders unsure whether to trust Malvis' authority over that of the Astarte. In the hesitation, cracks appeared in the chain of command. Malvis smiled in the privacy of her bridge. Division was a weapon, and she wielded it expertly. If Chief survived this battle, his victory would be tainted by suspicion. If he fell, she would claim it was proof of his unworthiness. Back in the Citadel, Chief's shields collapsed with a warning chime. He felt the absence like a sudden drop into icy water. The next blow would kill him. He moved faster. Spartan reflexes, honed through decades of war, carried him past the War Master's blade by millimeters. He struck back with every weapon he had left. Grenades, rifle bursts, close-quarter strike. At last, with a roar that shook the foundations of the fortress, Chief drove his blade deep into the War Master's throat while Severin rammed his power sword through the creature's chest. The two warriors pushed as one, forcing the weapons deeper, until the corrupted form gave way. The War Master collapsed in a convulsion of warp energy. His final laugh was a whisper in every soldier's mind. This is not the end, Outlander. I see you. Even in death, I see you. The Citadel trembled as the warp gate at its core began to destabilize. Chunks of reality peeled away, revealing the seething void beyond. Severin staggered to his feet, his armor cracked and bleeding oil. All forces, fall back, he roared. The fortress is collapsing. As the Imperials began their retreat, Damarcus lingered for a heartbeat longer, his gaze fixed on Chief. The alien warrior stood amidst the ruin, visor gleaming, unmoved by the chaos around him. In that moment, Damarcus understood why he feared him. Not because Chief might betray them, but because if he chose to lead them, they would follow. Even the most faithful could be swayed by a figure like this. Above, Malvith watched the withdrawal with cold satisfaction. The War Master was dead, but in his final act, he had given her a gift, a seed of doubt planted deep within the hearts of every witness, and doubt, she knew, was a more devastating weapon than any blade. The retreat from the collapsing citadel was chaos given form. Warp lightning split the sky as the fortress tore itself apart, chunks of corrupted stone and steel floating upward before disintegrating into nothingness. Screams and orders tangled together over the Vox, a cacophony of desperation as Imperial forces scrambled toward extraction points. Master Chief moved at the head of a battered column of guardsmen, his towering form a silent beacon amidst the storm. Behind them the remnants of the Iron Crusaders fought a rearguard action with grim determination. Severin's command voice boomed through the chaos, coordinating fire lanes and fallback positions. Even as his armor leaked smoke and ichor from the grievous wounds dealt by the War Master, Demarcus fought beside him, chanting litanies as his Crozius Arcanum cracked skulls and shattered corrupted bone. When they finally broke free of the rift's gravitational pull and boarded the waiting Thunderhawks, the survivors collapsed into their seats, utterly spent. Chief remained standing, scanning every face, every motion, every sound for signs of pursuit. His visor displayed dwindling life signs, casualty reports, and ammunition counts. The numbers were stark. Nearly 2/3 of their force had been annihilated. As the Thunderhawks ascended, the citadel below imploded in a final silent bloom of warp fire. Reality folded in on itself, leaving only a jagged wound in the void. The Black Crusade had been halted here, but at a cost that even victory could not cleanse. Back aboard the fleet, the mood was tense and brittle. Guardsmen whispered prayers of gratitude and despair in equal measure. Tech priests performed rites over the battered machine spirits of the surviving ship. Inquisitorial agents moved quietly through the ranks, taking statements, assessing loyalties, and planting their own subtle narratives. It was in this crucible of exhaustion and suspicion that the true conflict began. Chaplain Demarcus confronted Severin in the strategium, his voice as cold as the void. "This cannot stand," he declared. "That outsider may have struck down the War Master, but his very presence is a threat to the Imperium. The men rally to him more than to us. Even some of our brothers speak his name with reverence." Severin's reply was weary but unyielding. "He fought when others faltered. Without him we would have been annihilated. Faith, not efficiency, is the foundation of the Imperium," Demarcus countered, striking the edge of the hololith with his fist. "A warrior without faith is a weapon without a master, and weapons, Captain, can be turned against us." Their argument echoed through the chamber until Malvath arrived, her crimson robes flowing like spilled blood. "Enough," she said, her voice slicing through the tension. "The crusade is shattered, but the warp storms remain. We will not survive another campaign if we fracture now." Her gaze swept between them, sharp and calculating. "This, Master Chief, will be judged in time. Until then, his role remains necessary." Demarcus bowed stiffly, his fury contained but not extinguished. Severin gave a curt nod, though his expression betrayed the strain of holding his chapter together. Elsewhere, Chief moved through the ship's corridors like a silent shadow. Wherever he walked, conversations halted. Guardsmen straightened their backs, instinctively, unsure whether to salute or pray. To them, he was no longer merely a warrior. He was a myth, given form, a figure beyond comprehension. Carvin found him near one of the ship's observation decks, staring out into the void. "They're talking about you," the sergeant said quietly. His arm was still bandaged from the battle, his face gaunt with exhaustion. "Some say you're the Emperor's hand. Others, well, they whisper darker things." Chief didn't turn from the viewport. "Whispers don't matter. Action does." Carvin hesitated. "Maybe, but faith matters here, more than you think. Without it, men break. Without it, they turn to chaos." Chief's visor shifted slightly, reflecting the swirling warp storms beyond the glass. "Where I come from, we didn't need faith, just the mission. The fight was all that kept us going." Carvin gave a bitter laugh. "Here, the fight never ends. Without something to believe in, it'll eat you alive." Before Chief could reply, a deep sonorous alarm filled the ship. A priority summons echoed over the Vox. "All ranking officers to the stratagem, immediately." When they arrived, the room was a furnace of clashing wills. Severin stood rigid, his massive form radiating restrained fury. Demarcus loomed beside him, skull helm turned toward Malvath, like a silent accusation. The Inquisitor herself was a study in poise, her hands folded delicately as though she were conducting a symphony rather than directing a war. "Our scouts report enemy remnants regrouping near the edge of the Maledict Rift," Malvath began. "If they escape, they will spread their corruption across neighboring systems. We must strike now, before they can rebuild." Severin nodded. "We have the strength for one more offensive." Demarcus's tone was sharp as a blade. "We have strength, but no unity. The men do not know who they fight for anymore. Some chant the Emperor's name, Others chant his. He pointed to Chief. A ripple of unease passed through the gathered officers. Chief stood motionless, visor unreadable, yet his presence dominated the room. Malveth seized the moment, her voice smooth and cold. This is the true danger, not the enemy beyond, but the division within. Blood has been spilled in his name, but faith wavers. If we are not careful, this fleet will tear itself apart before the enemy strikes. The chamber descended into argument. Voices rose, accusations flew, and the foundations of imperial hierarchy trembled. Through it all, Chief remained silent. He listened, analyzed, calculated, but did not speak. Words were weapons he had never mastered, and here, they seemed sharper than any blade. At last, Severin slammed his fist into the hololith, shattering its display of the rift. Enough, we march against the enemy now. Any man who doubts our cause will find his faith tested on the battlefield. Demarcus's reply was a cold whisper. So be it, but when this battle ends, Captain, you will face the truth you fear. As the officers dispersed, Malveth lingered, her gaze fixed on Chief. You are a symbol now, she said softly, whether you choose to be or not. Symbols are dangerous things. They inspire, they corrupt. Chief finally spoke, his voice low and steady. I'm not here to inspire, I'm here to finish the fight. Malveth's smile was as thin and sharp as a blade. And when the fight is over, who will you be? I wonder. Far below, the remnants of the Black Crusade stirred. In the darkness, traitor warlords plotted their revenge, and the echo of the War Master's final laugh still lingered like a curse. The next battle would decide more than victory or defeat. It would decide whether faith could survive the weight of blood, or whether the Imperium itself would fracture beneath the shadow of a warrior who did not belong. The fleet burned through the void like a ragged spear, its vessels battered and smoke belching, yet still pushing toward the coordinates of the last Chaos stronghold. The Maledict Rift glimmered in the distance, its storms casting sickly violet light across the hulls of Imperial ships. Within those same ships, tension simmered to the point of rupture. Prayers were murmured more fervently now, not just for victory, but for clarity. Master Chief felt the change even without word. He walked the corridors of the strike cruiser Iron Resolve, silent as always, but the stares he received were different now. Guardsmen who had once saluted him with reverence, now turned away or knelt in quick panicked prayer. Others, emboldened by their own desperation, reached for him as if he was some living saint, whispering his name like a ward against the darkness. The divide was visible everywhere. Squads bickered in mess halls, some calling for loyalty to the Emperor alone, others murmuring that the stranger in green armor was a sign that the Imperium's gods were failing them. The air itself seemed to hum with suspicion, with fear, with the electric tension. Before a storm breaks, Carvin marched beside Chief through the lower decks, his face pale beneath layers of grime. This isn't right, he muttered, glancing at the guardsmen they passed. They're supposed to be brothers in arms, but now it's like there are two armies here instead of one. Chief's visor stayed forward. Division weakens the mission. Carvin gave a bitter laugh. Mission? That's the problem, sir. Half these men think the mission's saving the Emperor's realm. The other half, they think the mission is you. Chief didn't respond. Words were insufficient to bridge the chasm he saw widening before him. He had been here before, in another war, another time, when trust had frayed and turned victory into ashes. The fleet dropped into real space above Duskfall, a ruined world orbiting at the edge of the rift. Vox channels flared as scouts relayed their findings. Chaos remnants had fortified the ruins of a pre-imperial city, transforming its shattered towers into bastions of warped metal and living flesh. Warp storms rolled across the surface like living things, their movements unpredictable and violent. Brother Captain Severin gathered his warriors and commanders in the Stratium. His voice was iron, steady despite the tension coiling beneath it. This is the enemy's last bastion. We strike at dawn. The Iron Crusaders will take the central breach. The Guard will form a perimeter and hold it at all costs. His gaze shifted toward Master Chief. You will lead the Vanguard strike team. Your objective is simple. Sever the enemy's command node before their reinforcements can arrive.
Chief gave a single nod. Understood. Chaplain Damarcus stepped forward, his skull helm gleaming in the hololith's pale light. And if the outsider falters, we purge him, he declared. His presence has already divided our ranks. Better to burn the rot before it spreads further. Severin's voice was cold steel. We need every blade for this fight, Chaplain. There will be no purging today. Damarcus's silence was heavy, but he did not argue further. When the meeting ended, Malvith lingered behind, her crimson robes whispering across the deck. She approached Chief with a smile that never reached her calculating eyes. You've been given command, she said softly. Do you know what that means? Chief's visor turned toward her. Unreadable. It means I get them out alive. Malvith's lips curved faintly. Alive, perhaps, but loyalty, that is a different battle altogether. The assault began under the blood-red light of Duskfall's storm-ridden dawn. Dropships tore through the atmosphere, their engines screaming as they descended into hell. The landing zone was a blasted plain of broken statues and half-buried ruins. Chaos fire raked the incoming craft, ripping some from the sky before they could deploy. Chief hit the ground running, his boots sinking into ash and mud. His strike team followed, a mix of Iron Crusaders and hand-picked guardsmen, including Carvin. Together they plunged into the maze of ruined streets, cutting through cultists and traitor marines with precise coordinated strikes. The deeper they advanced, the stranger the city became. The buildings seemed to breathe, their walls pulsing with warp corruption. Whispering voices echoed through the ruins, promising glory, power, and salvation. Some guardsmen stumbled, clutching their ears, until Chief's voice cut sharply through the vox. Focus, eyes forward, ignore the noise. They pressed on, fighting street by street, until they reached the heart of the enemy's defenses, a massive plaza dominated by a towering black spire. The spire pulsed with crimson light, each throb sending waves of warp energy rippling through the ground. At its base, Chaos champions gathered, their armor fused with daemonic flesh. Chief signaled his team into position. We take out the command node, fast. The strike was swift and brutal. Explosions tore through enemy ranks, lasfire and bolters roaring in unison. Chief moved at the center of the storm, his blade and rifle cutting down foes with mechanical precision. At his side, Carvin fought like a man possessed, driven by equal parts fear and loyalty. For a moment it seemed they would succeed. The spire's defenses faltered, its crimson glow flickering. Then the betrayal struck. Without warning, a second volley of fire ripped through the Imperial ranks, this time from behind. Bolters barked in a deadly rhythm, cutting down guardsmen and marines alike. Screams filled the plaza as confusion turned to horror. Chief spun, his HUD marking the attackers instantly. Iron Crusaders, his own supposed allies, their heraldry, unmistakable. At their head strode Chaplain Damarcus, Crozius, blazing with holy fire. By the Emperor's will, Damarcus thundered, his voice carrying over the carnage. The heretic is revealed. The alien deceiver stands at the heart of this war. Strike him down before his corruption consumes us all. The loyalists staggered under the assault, unsure who to trust. Some hesitated, lowering their weapons. Others turned on Chief, without question, their faith in the chaplain absolute. Carvin shouted over the chaos. This is madness. He saved us. He's not the enemy.
But his words were drowned out by bolter fire. Chief moved with lightning speed, dragging Carvin behind cover as rounds sparked off his shields. His visor tracked the battlefield, calculating escape routes and tactical advantages. He could fight Damarcus's forces, but doing so would mean slaughtering men who, only hours before, had called him comrade. Through the smoke and screams, Damarcus advanced, his voice a sermon of death. See how he hesitates. See how he spares you. No true servant of the Emperor would show mercy to the faithless. The accusation was a dagger driven into the hearts of every soldier present. Some faltered, their loyalty wavering, others raised their weapons higher, ready to obey. Malvith's plan had borne fruit. Her whispers, her seeds of doubt, had bloomed into open rebellion. Chief's voice came calm and cold through the vox. Carvin, Rally whoever you trust. Get them to the extraction point. Carvin's eyes widened. What about you? Chief rose from cover, his silhouette framed by the burning spire. I'll keep them busy. Without another word, he charged straight into the traitor ranks, his blade flashing and rifle roaring. The battlefield erupted into chaos once more, friend and foe indistinguishable in the storm of blood and faith. Above it all, Damarcus's voice rang like a funeral bell, damning the outsider even as his forces descended into madness. The battle for Duskfall was no longer a fight against chaos. It was a war for the very soul of the Imperium. The ruins of Duskfall burned beneath a sky split by unnatural light. Warp storms bled across the heavens, tendrils of violet and black coiling downward to claw at the shattered city below. The spire at the heart of the plaza throbbed like a living organ, its crimson pulses growing faster, louder, until even the ground seemed to beat in rhythm with it. Somewhere within that vile structure lay the true objective of this campaign, a warp gate large enough to swallow entire armies and vomit them forth across the sector. Master Chief fought through smoke and chaos, his movements cold and precise amidst the storm of betrayal. His blade flickered in the crimson haze, his rifle spat controlled bursts, and wherever he struck, enemy lines faltered. But there were no clear lines anymore. The battlefield had become a tangled knot of confusion, loyalists and traitors indistinguishable save for fleeting glimpses of heraldry amid the blood. Chaplain Damarcus's voice roared over the vox, fueled by fervor and certainty. The alien stands revealed. Every soul who follows him is damned. Purge them in the Emperor's name. His words cut through the chaos like a holy blade. Soldiers who only hours before had fought shoulder to shoulder now turned their guns on one another. Some screamed oaths of loyalty to the chaplain, others shouted defiance, swearing they would not strike down the one who had saved them. The plaza dissolved into madness, a reflection of the warp gate's corrupting influence. Chief's visor tracked movement with mechanical precision, marking targets and calculating threat levels. His objective remained unchanged: destroy the gate before it fully activated. But every path to the spire was blocked, not only by chaos forces, but by those who had once been his ally. Carvin stumbled to his side, face streaked with soot and blood. We can't hold this position, they're tearing each other apart out there. Chief's reply was calm, unshaken. Then we cut through. He pointed to a shattered avenue leading toward the spire's base. Even through the haze, Carvin could see the shifting forms moving within the crimson light, daemon engines, warp-twisted monstrosities and towering traitor marines. That's suicide, Carvin said, breathless. Necessary, Chief answered. The gate opens, everything dies. Before they could move, a new presence entered the fray. A booming voice rolled across the battlefield, and all combat faltered for an instant. Hear me, brother. Brother Captain Severin strode into the plaza, his armor cracked and blackened, his once proud heraldry nearly obliterated by flame. He carried his power sword in one hand, and a storm shield in the other. The enemy lies not in each other but before us. Look to the spire. That is where the true heresy stands. For a heartbeat his words seemed to take hold. Some Marines lowered their weapons, their loyalty wavering between Chaplain and Captain. Damarcus's reply was a bellow of rage. You are blind, Severin. The alien is the cancer that rots us from within. Strike him down, and the Emperor's light will shine again. Severin turned to face him, his voice grim and final. If we fight among ourselves, there will be no Imperium left to save. The two titans of the chapter stood opposed, their followers caught between them, and in that fragile pause chaos struck. The spire's crimson glow flared blindingly bright. A deep resonant hum rose from its core, and a column of warp energy shot skyward, tearing through the cloud. Daemon engines poured from the gate in endless waves, their roars merging with the unearthly screams of newly manifested warp entities. Chief didn't hesitate. Move, he ordered, breaking from cover and sprinting straight toward the spire. Carvin followed, dragging a handful of loyal guardsmen with him. Behind them Severin roared for his brothers to rally, and for a moment the Iron Crusaders turned their fury outward once more. Even Damarcus, his rage momentarily drowned by necessity, swung his Crozius at the oncoming tide of daemons. The final assault had begun. Chief advanced like a living weapon, his visor painting the battlefield in cold data. Grenade indicators blinked, ammo counts scrolled, and threat markers flared red across his HUD. He moved faster than human eyes could track, cutting down enemies with surgical precision. Daemon Core sizzled against his shields, burning like acid. Carven stayed close, firing his lasgun, until the barrel glowed white-hot. Around them guardsmen died by the dozens, but they pressed on, driven by the knowledge that this was the last chance to stop the gate. They reached the base of the spire as the ground cracked and buckled beneath them. Warp energy surged upward, forming tendrils of living light that lashed at anything nearby. Chief's shields screamed warnings, their reserves dropping dangerously low. Carven, Chief said, his voice steady even as the world disintegrated around them. Set charges along these supports, maximum yield. Carven's hands trembled, but he obeyed, planting demolition packs while Chief provided covering fire. Each explosion would weaken the spire's structure, but the final detonation had to occur at the core. Through the smoke, Damarcus appeared, his crozius raised high. His armor was drenched in blood, some his own, most not. "It ends here, alien," he roared, voice breaking through the cacophony. "You will not defile this world further." Chief turned, rifle raised, but Severin intercepted the chaplain with a crash of blade against Crozius. The two warriors clashed amidst the burning ruins, their duel as fierce as the war around them. Carven shouted over the roar of battle, "Sir, charges are ready." Chief sprinted toward the spire's entrance. Inside, the structure was a nightmare of twisting flesh and metal, its walls alive with screaming faces. At its center hovered the gate itself, a swirling vortex of impossible colors. Shapes moved within it, armies, worlds, entire realities glimpsed for an instant before vanishing. He leapt across shifting platforms, his movements perfectly timed, and reached the core. With precise, methodical motions, he armed the final charge. Extraction in 60 seconds, he voxed to Carven. But as he turned to leave, a shadow fell across him. A monstrous figure emerged from the vortex, its form half daemon, half-armored warlord. Its voice was a guttural hiss, echoing from both throat and warp. "Outsider," it snarled. "You think to close what we have opened. You are nothing here." Chief didn't answer. He fired point-blank into the creature's face, then charged forward. The two collided in a brutal melee, every strike shaking the chamber. The daemon's claws shredded Chief's shields, tearing through layers of armor. Chief countered with blade and fists, his movements pure survival instinct. Outside, the battle reached its crescendo. Severin drove his power sword through Damarcus's chest, the chaplain's final curse spilling from his lips as he fell. The Iron Crusaders, stunned by their leader's fall, faltered, until Severin's voice rang out, "For the Emperor, for humanity, forward." The remaining Marines rallied, driving the daemons back as Carven's detonation charges began to explode. The spire groaned, its living walls collapsing inward. Inside, Chief struck the final blow. With a roar that was silent to all but himself, he drove his blade into the daemon's heart and triggered the core charge. The resulting explosion consumed everything. Warp energy screamed as the gate imploded, sucking daemons and corrupted matter into itself before vanishing in a blinding flash. When the light faded, the spire was gone. In its place lay a smoking crater and the shattered remnants of a battlefield. Severin stood amidst the ruins, his armor blackened, his breathing ragged. Carven staggered beside him, eyes scanning desperately for any sign of the green-armored warrior. At last, through the smoke, a figure emerged, scarred, battered, but unbroken. Master Chief walked forward in silence, the ruined landscape reflected in his golden visor. The gate was destroyed, the enemy routed, but victory had come, at a cost so great it felt like defeat. And above them, in orbit, Inquisitor Malveth watched with cold satisfaction, already crafting the narrative that would shape the Imperium's next war. The smoke over Duskfall had not yet cleared when the alarms began again. Faint at first, a low rumble through the fleet's vox channels, then rising into a crescendo of panic. Master Chief stood amidst the ruins, visor turned skyward. His armor was scorched and cracked, blackened by daemon blood and fire, yet he remained unbroken. Around him,
Guardsmen and surviving Iron Crusaders scrambled to regroup, their movements sluggish with exhaustion and grief. The spire was gone, the warp gate destroyed, but the war was not over. Above the world, the remnants of the traitor fleet had not fled. Instead, they were converging. Massive warp signatures appeared on Auspex screens as fresh chaos reinforcements bled into real space, drawn by the destruction of the gate. It was not a retreat. It was a last, desperate surge. Severan's voice thundered across all channels, firm despite his injuries. Imperial forces, hold your positions. The enemy comes in their death throes. If we falter now, all our sacrifices will be for nothing. We stand, or we die. Inquisitor Malveth's cold voice overrode his on a separate channel, sharp and precise. Stand, yes, but remember, who must fall when this is done? Her words were aimed at Chief, though she did not name him outright. Even now, as the galaxy burned, she thought of control, of narrative, of the power to shape truth. On the ground, Carvin staggered through the wreckage, blood streaking his face. "Sir," he gasped, gripping Chief's armored forearm. "We're spent. The men can barely stand, let alone fight another wave." Chief's response was steady, without hesitation. "Then we hold here." Carvin's eyes widened. "Hold, against that. You've seen what's coming. There's no way." "There's always a way," Chief cut him off, his voice like iron. "We fight, we buy time for evacuation. No one else dies for nothing." The simplicity of the words steadied Carvin, more than any sermon could have. He nodded, rallying those who could still fight. Guardsmen formed ragged firing lines amidst the ruins, while the Iron Crusaders locked into defensive positions, their battle chants rising in a hoarse, thunderous roar. The enemy descended like a plague. Drop pods of twisted metal slammed into the ground, splitting open to unleash Chaos Marines and Daemon engines. Warp creatures poured through rifts in the air itself, their forms barely solid, their screams a weapon as deadly as their claws. The battle began, with a roar that shook the earth. Bolters thundered, las guns spat crimson beams, and the sky lit with orbital bombardments, as Imperial ships fought desperately to hold orbit. The line buckled, but did not break. Chief moved among them, like a living bulwark, his presence anchoring the defense. He was everywhere at once, patching gaps in the line, striking down enemy champions, dragging the wounded to safety before returning to the fight. Carvin fought beside him, his last gun overheating, hands blistered. At one point he stumbled and nearly fell beneath a warp creature's talons, only for Chief's blade to cleave it in two before it could strike. "On your feet," Chief ordered, hauling him upright. "The fight isn't over." Through the haze of battle, Severan led his surviving Crusaders, with grim ferocity. His voice boomed over the Vox, a rallying point amidst the storm. Yet even as he fought, he kept one eye on Damarcus's absence, on the men who still looked to the chaplain's memory for guidance. His chapter teetered on the edge of schism, and he knew one misstep could doom them all. Malveth's agents moved like shadows through the ranks, whispering poison into weary ears. To some they promised salvation if they denounced Chief. To others, they sowed doubt in Severan's command. Even as daemons clawed at reality, the true battle was being waged in whispers and divided loyalties. The tide turned when a massive daemon engine emerged from the warp, a towering abomination bristling with cannons and writhing limbs. Its first volley shattered an entire defensive line, hurling bodies into the air like ragdolls. Panic surged through the Imperials. Chief didn't hesitate. He sprinted forward alone, vaulting debris and broken body. His visor calculated firing arcs, shield capacity and detonation points in fractions of a second. He climbed the creature's warped metal frame under withering fire, planting explosives along its joints before leaping clear. The charges detonated in a chain reaction, tearing the beast apart in a storm of fire and gore. For a heartbeat, the entire battlefield froze, all eyes fixed on the green armored figure, standing amidst the smoking ruin. A cheer rose from the guardsmen, ragged, but fierce. Even some of the Iron Crusaders added their voices. It was more than victory, it was hope. Damarcus's accusations, Malveth's manipulations, all seemed to fade in that moment. Chief had saved them when faith alone would not, but Malveth was not finished. From orbit, She ordered a precision strike on the battlefield, its purpose cloaked beneath the language of strategy. The bombardment would annihilate the enemy, and conveniently erase Chief, along with every witness to his deeds. Severin intercepted the order in time, his face, visible through his cracked helm, contorted with rage. "You dare!" he shouted into the vox. "These are our warriors. You would kill them to hide your lies." Malveth's voice remained cold and measured. "This is the Emperor's will." "No," Severin growled. "It's yours." Without hesitation, he cut the channel, and rallied his forces, for a final push. The last wave of Chaos forces broke against the Imperials, like a storm against a cliff. Chief fought at the center, his shields flickering, armor dented, and smoking. Every motion was pain, every strike an effort of will, yet he did not falter, even when surrounded, even when outnumbered 100-1, he stood unbroken. Severin joined him, his power sword a blazing arc of light. Together, they carved a path through the heart of the enemy. Around them, guardsmen and marines rallied, their battle cries merging into one final defiant roar. At last the traitor champion leading the assault fell beneath Chief's blade, his corrupted body crumbling into ash. The warp rifts shuddered and collapsed, sucking the remaining daemons back into the void. Silence fell. The battlefield was a graveyard, littered with the dead and the dying. Smoke drifted over broken statues and shattered walls. Chief stood amidst it all, breathing raggedly, his golden visor reflecting the first rays of dawn, breaking through the storm. Severin staggered beside him, blood seeping through the cracks in his armor. "The day is ours," he rasped, "but the war never ends." Above them, Malveth watched in cold fury as her plan unraveled. Chief had survived. Worse, he had become something she could no longer control, a symbol too powerful to erase. In that moment, she made her decision. Prepare the narrative, she told her acolyte. The galaxy will hear of this victory, and of the alien who died making it possible. On the ground, Carvin limped to Chief's side, staring at the towering warrior. "We held, sir," he whispered, voice thick with awe and grief. "Against everything, we held." Chief said nothing. Words were not needed. His silence was answer enough. In the distance, the rising sun revealed the shattered world of Duskfall. It was a hollow victory, bought with blood and faith alike. The Imperium would claim it as triumph. Malveth would twist it into a tomb. But for the men who had stood beside the green-armored warrior, it would be remembered for what it truly was. The day they learned that even in the darkness of the 41st millennium, a lone soldier could stand against the endless night and not fall. The smoke of battle clung to Duskfall like a burial shroud. The ruins of the once great city lay silent, broken only by the low crackle of dying fires and the distant groans of the wounded. It was the kind of silence that followed not peace, but exhaustion, an entire world holding its breath, unsure if the nightmare was truly over. Master Chief stood at the center of it all, unmoving amidst the wreckage. His armor was blackened and pitted, the once polished green now dulled beneath layers of ash and blood. The golden glow of his visor reflected the dawn breaking over the horizon, cold light falling upon the dead of both Chaos and Imperium. Around him, survivors stumbled through the ruin. Guardsmen collected the wounded, their movements mechanical with grief and fatigue. The Iron Crusaders moved like giants among men, their ranks diminished, their faith shaken but unbroken. Even Severin, whose voice had rallied them in their darkest hour, leaned heavily on his power sword, his breathing labored. Carvin limped to Chief's side, his lasso slung across his back, his face smeared with blood and soot. "It's over," he rasped, though the words sounded hollow. "The gates destroyed, the traitors are scattered, we won." Chief didn't answer immediately. His visor swept across the battlefield, analyzing movement, tallying casualties, calculating the true cost. Only when the silence became unbearable did he speak. "Victory doesn't look like this." Carvin followed his gaze. The dead lay in heaps, Imperial and Chaos alike, their bodies indistinguishable in the ruin. For every guardsman still breathing, 3 had fallen. The knowledge sat heavy in his chest. Above the planet, the surviving Imperial fleet hung in orbit, battered and flickering with damage.
From the bridge of her command ship, Inquisitor Malveth watched the surface. Through the cold lens of her hollow, she saw the shattered spire, the collapsed warp rift, and the lone, towering figure standing amidst it all. He lives, her acolyte murmured, awe mingled with fear. Malveth's expression did not change. He does, she said, her tone a knife edge of calculation, and that is a problem. The acolyte shifted uneasily. The men will speak of him, my lady. They already are. They say he fought like a Primarch reborn. Some even call him the Emperor's chosen. They will not, Malveth said sharply. We will control the story before it spread. The people crave victory, not truth. They will have their hero, but it will not be him.
Then what of him? Malveth's gaze lingered on the image of the armored warrior. He will vanish, she said simply. A martyr's death in the final moments of battle. His body lost to the warp, his sacrifice woven into the tapestry of Imperial propaganda. The legend will live. The reality will not. On the surface, Severin approached Chief, his massive frame casting a long shadow. The brother captain's armor was cracked and leaking sacred oils, his face pale beneath his helm. You saved this world, Severin said, his voice heavy with the weight of truth. No one can deny that. But the Imperium, it does not understand warriors like you. It fears what it cannot name. Chief turned slightly, visor catching the light. Fear isn't the problem, control is. Severin inclined his head. Perhaps both. The Inquisition will not allow you to walk free. They will twist this victory into whatever form suits them, and they will make you the enemy, if it serves their design. Chief said nothing. His silence was answer enough. As the evacuation began, Imperial banners were raised over the ruins. Vox casters blared triumphant hymns, drowning out the screams of the dying. The official tale spread quickly. The brave forces of the Imperium had destroyed the warp gate at great cost, led by the unyielding faith of Chaplain Damarcus and the strategic brilliance of Brother Captain Severin. The alien warrior was mentioned only once as a nameless relic of the warp that had been destroyed alongside the enemy, a curiosity best forgotten. Carvin overheard the broadcasts and his fists clenched. They're erasing you, he said bitterly to Chief as they prepared to board a Everything you did, every life you saved. They're rewriting it all. Chief checked his rifle in silence. Finally he spoke, his voice calm, almost detached. The mission was never about recognition, only survival. But it matters, Carvin snapped. The men need to know the truth. Chief's visor turned toward him unreadable. Truth doesn't win wars. Stories do. The words silenced Carvin more effectively than any order could have. As the last Imperial ships lifted from duskfall, the planet's surface was left to smolder in ruin. From orbit it looked peaceful, almost serene, a false image of salvation. Malveth stood before her hololith, addressing her acolytes and senior officers. Spread the tale across the sector, she commanded. Let the people know that the Emperor's chosen warriors held the line, that their faith burned brighter than the darkness. There will be parades, songs, oaths renewed. The Imperium must see strength, not doubt. And the alien, one officer, asked cautious. Malveth's smile was thin, almost imperceptible. He will become a lesson, a cautionary tale of what happens when one strays from the Emperor's light. His name will never be spoken again. Back in the troop bay of a battered dropship, Carvin sat beside Chief in silence. The young sergeant's hands trembled, not from fear, but from anger held in check. They'll never give you credit, he said quietly. But I will remember. So will the men who fought beside you. Chief didn't look at her. His gaze remained fixed on the horizon, where the planet dwindled into the void. It doesn't matter, he said. I know what happened. That's enough. Carvin hesitated. And if they come for you, if the Inquisition decides you're a threat they can't control. Chief's response was as cold and certain as the void itself. Then they'll learn what kind of threat I am. The dropship rattled as it entered the warp, stars stretching into lines of impossible light. Around them soldiers dozed or prayed, their faith fragile but unbroken. Far above, Malveth began crafting her final report. It would tell of victory, through faith, of the Emperor's will made manifest. It would speak of heroes and martyrs, of chaos defeated by purity of purpose. It would never mention the lone warrior in green armor, the silent figure who had stood against the endless night. But in the hearts of those who had seen him fight, a different story would live on. A whispered legend passed from soldier to soldier, spreading like fire through the cracks of the Imperium's carefully maintained truth. And so 2 histories were born that day, one carved in marble and ink by the hand of power, and another carried in silence by those who had stood at the edge of the abyss. The galaxy would remember the lie, but the legend would endure.